Please rewind this cassette.
Hey guys, welcome to Box Office Addict, my weekly show where I break down the weekend numbers and sort of just talk about what's going on in the industry right now. This is episode 95, and it will be the last episode and the last video that I make in 2019. So when we get to the end of this, I'll sort of talk about what happened over this last year with the channel and what's going to be happening in 2020. But we'll also be talking about this year in the box office. I would like to do an overall box office breakdown of the whole year. I plan on doing that next year, where I do like the top 10 most successful movies of 2019. Which I did something like that last year, where I talked about the films that I was most impressed with and their performance especially. There's actually a lot to discuss this weekend, so I'm going to try to hit as many of these as I can quickly, because this was the weekend of holds. Because obviously with the holiday boost, every movie had a huge boost in its box office. Like every major release had a substantially good hold or an increase over the weekend. And some movies that were underperforming, let's say like Jumanji, got what it needed to be put over the top, or something like Frozen 2. And there's a lot to say about Star Wars, because Rise of the Skywalker had a better second weekend hold than The Last Jedi. Now, there is a reason for this. Last Jedi did not open at the same time, so it didn't get this benefit. It did have a 67% drop, where this movie only had a 59% drop. But we have to see how it's going to hold in the subsequent weeks, as opposed to Last Jedi, which started holding better as time went on. But as of right now, Rise of the Skywalker is outpacing The Last Jedi worldwide, and right now it looks like it should be able to outgross the movie, which it really should do because it's the last Star Wars movie. But we'll have to see if it drops more as time goes on. The big thing is that there's just not a lot to go see right now. Like, unless you want to go see Jumanji or Frozen 2, for this period of time, it's Star Wars. Star Wars is the movie. But let's look at some other films real quick. Cats continues to be a major failure, even though it didn't have a big drop of 27%, but that's just because of the holiday. It's at 39 million worldwide. I think it'll probably top out at somewhere around 100 million. Bombshell continues to be a disappointment. Uncut Gems went into wide release at 2,400 theaters. It made 9.5 million. It's pretty crazy the Safdie's got a wide release this wide with this movie, but Adam Sandler. So far, the film's made 22 million, because this includes Monday right now. I really don't know what the budget for this film is. I can't imagine it was that high, but it's already surpassed the lifetime gross of Good Time, their previous movie. Knives Out from Rian Johnson got a huge boost this weekend, 9.8 million. It was up this weekend, 51%. So that movie's at 112 million domestic at 217 million worldwide on a $40 million budget. So that's already exceeded expectations. And should be able to end up somewhere around 120 mil domestic. So Knives Out's actually just a hit at this point. Spies in Disguise made 13.3 million, is at 25 mil domestic. That's the Will Smith movie where he gets turned into a bird. Let's talk about Little Women from Greta Gerwig, which I predicted would be a success. Mainly on name brand alone, that Little Women has always been successful, and it doesn't hurt to have Emma Watson and a lot of big name actors in this movie. Very critically acclaimed, like I was expecting, because of Lady Bird. Pretty much this is what everybody thought. Everybody thought this would be a well-reviewed and successful movie. It was actually very smart on Sony's part to bring Greta Gerwig in. She wasn't the original director on this movie, and it was actually really smart to put this cast together. If they could have got Emma Stone in here, it would have put this over the top. So it made 16.7 million over the weekend, but over its full release, it's made 29 million, and currently it's at 33 mil domestic and 40 million worldwide. Now I have to assume this film has a budget of at least, I don't know, 30 million, because of the production value and the sets and the costumes, and they'd have to pay these actresses. But as of right now, this is a really, really good opening in its first 6 days. It looks like it should be able to make 80 mil domestically, and over 100 million worldwide. So the real focus of this week, if you're looking at everything else, the success story here is Little Women, just because of its reviews and it doing so well. So Little Women is really, that's why I've kind of made it the focus, at least you'll see in the thumbnail. Because these other movies you all knew would make money. Little Women, I don't think people were sure of, or they didn't know exactly the reception of it, but it's all just a positive, and it's a big plus for Sony, because if you look here, we have Disney with Star Wars and Frozen, and then we have Jumanji, but then Sony also has Little Women, so Sony is doing very well right now. And then of course you have Lionsgate with Knives Out, and then you have A24 in there, and then of course Universal is very embarrassed right now with Cats. There's Lionsgate again with Bombshell, Richard Jewell from Warner Brothers, which is not doing well. Ford v Ferrari, which is Fox, which is Disney, has finally passed 200 million worldwide. Hopefully that'll do a little bit better internationally. And 1917 from Sam Mendes, which is Universal, has so far made 1.1 million. Now this is a $100 million movie. And then of course you have Parasite. Let's see where that's at worldwide. 127 million, so that's got a little bit of a boost. Parasite did really well overall. And nothing below that's really worth mentioning. Those are main things right now. But yeah, I wanted to say Little Women is definitely the success story of the weekend, if you were going to pick one movie. Frozen 2 continues to do well, 16.8 million. It really needed this holiday boost to put it over the top. It's now at 1.2 billion worldwide. The first film, I don't know where the first film ended up. I want to guess 1,276 million is where Frozen ended up as the highest grossing animated film, but I have no idea. That's memory. 1,274 million. Okay, so I was close. So yeah, it's already passed it domestically, and internationally it should be able to get there. So yeah, Frozen 2 will outgross the first Frozen. It looks like it should be able to reach 450 million domestically easily and 1.3 billion worldwide. So this is a huge hit. Okay, Jumanji: The Next Level, 35 million weekend. Great weekend for this movie. Put it up to a great domestic total of 175 million on a budget of 125 million. Right now, it's right under 500 million worldwide. As you know, the previous film made 962 million. So I don't still think this is going to reach that. Actually, it's at 183 mil domestic, because that film made 400 mil domestic, and I think this has to go way too far to get that. I don't think the word of mouth is there. But this could make 230 to 250 million domestic, and now it looks like 700 million worldwide is certainly possible, or at least 650 million worldwide. And when you consider the budget and everything, this is very successful. It's not the success of the first film in this new franchise, but... Okay, so we'll talk about Star Wars. 59% drop. It is at 377 mil domestic and is at $761 million worldwide. Now, I've heard that this movie cost anywhere from $250 to $300 million. One thing is, where the fuck did they put that money? There's no way they paid Adam Driver, Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, and them that much money. None of them are that big of box office draws outside of this. It's more the brand that sells this. It's not like Robert Downey Jr. playing Iron Man. So I'm not quite sure. It must have been something to do with the reshoots, and maybe JJ got a big paycheck up front, so they could maybe not give him as much back end. So the movie's only been in theaters for 11 days. A lot of people on my chat last week said that this movie wouldn't make $1 billion. Well, it's already under 800 million, so $1 billion is pretty much guaranteed. The international numbers aren't fantastic at 384 million. They could be doing a little bit better there. Domestically, $500 million has to be a lock, just because it made 72 million. Now, you gotta remember, The Force Awakens in its second week, it made 150 million. So when that film ended up making $936 million, it just had, the third weekend was 90 million. You know, these other two Star Wars films can't compete with that. That was such a bigger crowd pleaser than that too, and I think they were hoping that they were going to continue to ride that wave, but these films have been more controversial immediately, not later on like Force Awakens was, and they're not necessarily crowd pleasers in the same way. I think this film could have been, but it's not as well edited. It's a very sloppy movie. From a filmmaking standpoint, but still, it should make $1 billion. Right now, it is pacing to pass Last Jedi. $1.3 billion is certainly possible, but it will definitely not reach The Force Awakens. Last Jedi made 1.3 billion. I think this will be there. But the big thing to point out is this will be the first Star Wars film in this new series of this new trilogy that will not be the highest grossing film of this year. And I don't think it'll probably pass Frozen 2, at least worldwide, and it won't pass The Lion King, and it certainly won't pass Endgame. And it's definitely not as successful as, let's say, like Joker. Joker's 1.1 billion is a lot more impressive than this movie making 1.3 billion, especially when you consider that the budget is so much lower. But let's see where Joker's at. I believe Joker passed 1.1 billion. Because last time I checked, it was one. Now it's at 1 billion 62 million, but essentially, it's right there. Okay, so let's see here. Parasite, A Hidden Life, Last Christmas, Pain and Glory. It's weird they released Last Christmas so early. Let's read the article from Box Office Mojo. Oh, look, the Bergman shot that everyone uses. Okay, but both top studio expectations, as did this weekend's expansion of Uncut Gems. With an estimated 72 million, Disney Star Wars dipped 59%, pushing the film's domestic gross over 361 million. The drop is much larger than we expected given the past performances of the films over the same time. However, it is better than the 67.5% second weekend plunge for The Last Jedi a couple of years ago, as it managed to close the gap between the two films after 10 days in release. 10 days in theaters. Internationally, Skywalker added 94 million for 363 million, and a global tally that is now just shy of 725 million. The weekend didn't see any new markets released, as the UK still leads all international markets with 51 million. Next weekend, we will see the film open in Vietnam. Jumanji made 35 million. What did it make internationally? 61 million. Third is where we find the first of the weekend's new wide release in Sony's Little Women, the latest retelling of the classic writer-directors of the classic novel, Greta Gerwig, blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to look at numbers here. I want to see comparisons. But does line up with Mojo's pre-weekend forecast. The film received an A- cinema score from opening day audiences that saw crowds that were 70% female. That's pretty crazy. That's a 70%. Let's see. The film will open in Australia, France on January 1st, followed by openings in Brazil, Italy, Mexico, Germany, and Russia. Disney's Frozen 2 saw a jump this weekend compared to last, improving 27%. Let's see. Nearly 800 million, as the global tally now stands at 1,217 million. It's more than that now, but when they wrote the article, obviously. Topping Minions, so it's now surpassed Minions. What an achievement. Of course, Uncut Gems, which I plan on doing a review for very soon. I'm just working 50 hours a week at work right now. It's the holidays. Which went wide past week, playing in 2,400 locations and delivered an estimated 18 million over the last 5 days, pushing the film's domestic cume over 20 million, serving as the largest 5-day performance in the studio's history, although the sample size is relatively small. One potential cause for concern, however, is that while the film scored an A- cinema score in limited release, this week's wide audience gave it a C+. The audience scored Rotten Tomatoes also just 54%, which puts a question mark on the film's future. The thing is, I don't think the Safdies are mainstream. I think Good Time, I love that movie. I know film buffs love that movie. It's big in art house scenes, but, I don't know if just a normal person would enjoy that movie. If you go look on IMDb, it's got like a 7.2, and that's a movie I would, for me, should have like an 8.3 or something, and yeah, the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, I think it's just, that their movies make you so uncomfortable. They're so kinetic. They give you a lot of anxiety. Especially this one having more of this mumblecore or Robert Altman-esque dialogue in the beginning. So I could definitely see that. But if you remember, Wolf of Wall Street got a C cinema score. It still went on to make 120 million. Because sometimes the film is just so discussed, the cinema score is irrelevant. It does affect some movies, like the movie The Witch really took a big hit when its cinema score was bad. But honestly, this movie making like 20 million in 5 days, considering what it is, even if it does drop off, I would say this is a success. I'm not really sure why the Rotten Tomatoes score is so low. That confuses me. Especially since everyone always just likes to preach on the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes anymore, even though I don't really give a shit about it. Let's look at what the Monday grosses were just to see, real quick. just how much money these each made individually. So Star Wars made 15 million, Jumanji did 8, Frozen did 4, Little Women did 4, Knives Out made 2.4 million, Uncut Gems did 2.1. Cats made $1 million on Monday. No, Cats really benefited from the holidays, because this would have even been a bigger disaster. Because once the holidays are over, I'm expecting like 60% plus drops. Although there might just be curiosity from some people to go see the movie just because of hearing how bad it is. You know, the temptation to go see exactly how bad it might be. Let's see where Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood's at. It might be able to make 60 million. It's right there at just 4 million. It's shocking this film didn't do better, though. Very weird. Jojo Rabbit also didn't perform that great either. Even though a lot of people seem to like that movie. All right, so 2019 was interesting. I think that the big thing to take away from the box office, at least, was that it was another year of Disney, but there was a surprising amount of unexpected hits, you know, and there was also some things we learned that horror maybe wasn't as prominent as it was a few years ago. And the rom-com maybe didn't quite make the comeback, and maybe that Bohemian Rhapsody heat couldn't happen again because Rocketman, while doing well, didn't do as well, nearly as well. So it's pretty much what we've been saying the last few years. It just seems like the major Disney IPs, because they all did well. Aladdin did well, Lion King did well, Star Wars did well, Marvel did well, Captain Marvel came out at the beginning of the year. If I had to say the one film that really did like stand out throughout the year so far, that really was a surprise, and was such a big hit that I don't think anyone expected it had to probably be Joker, making the 1.1 billion. And I think as far as art films or independent cinema goes, I think the performance of Parasite is very surprising, just how well that film did domestically, making over 20 million in the United States. As for the channel, I was proud of every video I made this year for the most part. I think the videos were better. I think we had better editing on them. I think my commentary was better. There was less rants. I think that I made some of my best videos I've ever made this year. I'm really proud of the Gilbert Grape video. I'm really proud of the Game of Thrones Part 1, Part 2 reviews. And the biggest videos of this year, obviously, were my Game of Thrones reviews. Those got hundreds of thousands of views. And I never really recaptured that success during the summer from those weekly reviews of Game of Thrones. And I had a pretty rough dry spell there going into the fall. And even right now, my videos are doing well, but I'm certainly not getting the same kind of, traction I did with The Last Jedi. Although I think there's more apathy towards Skywalker than there was Last Jedi, which everybody wanted to talk about. Mainly, I think I focused on quality this year over quantity. I came up with some new ideas exploring Disney Plus. Box Office Addict became a more streamlined show and not a live stream. We started Please Rewind Live. Overall, though, I think the content was really good this year. I wish the audience had grown a little bit more. The Game of Thrones thing was great. That put me over 15,000, but I won't lie, at the end of the year, I was hoping I'd be at 20,000. I was hoping I would reach another big hurdle, but right now we're at 15,500. Hopefully we can get to 20,000 here in the next few months. Hopefully something does really well on the channel, but your guys' support is really the most important thing. You guys have been really great, and the loyalty of the audience has been really beautiful and powerful over the last few months. And all the regulars, you guys know who you are, who used to tune into this show when it was a live stream, and who watch every video and leave a comment. It means a lot to me. I know that sometimes, I don't always give you everything you want, and I know that we can have a complicated relationship, but I do love doing this. I would like to do this more, but it's just a thing where, it doesn't pay the bills. But it's still a hobby, it's still a passion, and I haven't given up on it, which I think means a lot. And a big reason for that is that, you guys keep me going when I start to really doubt myself. And then I make a video I'm really proud of, and then I'm like, well, I guess it's all worth it. But a few videos I really like this year, the Donnie Darko one, obviously. But my favorite one of the whole year might have to be The Garden State as a horror movie, because that was one where I think that's the best editing I've ever done on a video. And I think that's one of the just funnier, more entertaining. I think the part with Natalie Portman putting the headphones on and Zach Braff putting them on and Goblin starts playing is like one of my great achievements. And it was weird. This was a year of endings because it's the end of a decade. We got the end of the Marvel Cinematic Universe main run, and that was very disappointed in Endgame. We got the end of Game of Thrones, which was very disappointing, and now we have the end of the Skywalker saga. And I think how each one of these things turned out, I think is very reflective of the decade that they came from. And, everything that has a beginning has an end. We came to the end of all of these franchises, all of these IPs, and we're entering a new era. We're entering the new era of Disney Plus and, YouTube content evolving and esports and everything. And we're going into a whole new decade. We're not just leaving a year, we're leaving a decade behind. And I've lived through 3 decades now. So I guess I have a little bit of perspective. So I'm hoping entering this new decade that we can all rise like the phoenix from the ashes and get better movies, make better content, and just be better people, which would be the best thing. And I would like to see some empathy and some kindness come back into society. I'm sort of sick of all the arguing and conflict and all that, and I'm just tired of it, and I think everyone's tired of the bullshit. So I'm hoping that 2020 is just like a kick-ass year for everybody, and I'm really hoping that I hit a stride, and that the channel can get over the top at that point. That's the real hope. And now that we've left these things behind, Star Wars, Marvel, Game of Thrones, the cultural phenomenons of our time, or times before that, we can start to enjoy the next new thing and continue off that, and that the next decade has more of an identity than this one did. That would be really nice. Because it felt like we didn't really have an identity, because things happen so immediately now. We're living in the immediate so much now that it's hard to reflect on things. But reflecting a little bit back, all I could think is that it was a fine decade. It wasn't bad. A lot happened, but yet it all felt like it happened yesterday. It was a whisper. Not a screaming match, even though the last few years have been feeling that way with the political divide. But yeah, let's just be better. That's all I can say. Let's be better in 2020, and I promise that I'll be better, not just for myself, but for you guys, and I'll try to kick ass next year. But as always, please rewind your VHS tapes. Be addicted to the box office. Love me, hate me, whatever. I've read all the comments. I get all of the comments. I even get the negatives. I want, I'm not going anywhere. So if you want to stick around, there's another season of the show to go. I'm not done with it yet. And we're only 5 episodes till we get to Box Office Addict 100. So I'm pretty fucking excited about that. So I don't know. All I got to say is if you guys want to come along with me, then let's do it. I'm looking forward to it. All right, thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys for the next video, whenever that is. Maybe I'll do an Exploring Disney Plus on something. Maybe I can sit down and watch that shitty Lady and the Tramp reboot.